I just told my first ever live story in front of an audience to about 80, 100 people, and it's really given me a new perspective on why it's so difficult for us to go do our like dharma work. Our work that we are here to do in our lifetime that only we can do. And it's the work that's calling us deep in our soul that we know we should be doing, but we kind of just keep like putting it off. And maybe it's conscious, maybe it's unconscious. It's different for everybody, and the work you're called to do is different for everybody as well. For me, for the human design people, I'm a manifest generator. I once had a client who is a human design coach, and she had told me that like I'm meant to be in front of large groups of people. Even one-on-one is like not really meant for me, as I actually really love one-on-one. But she's like, you would perform even better in front of groups of people. And I've known for a while that I love to perform. I love attention. I I want to be doing more speaking gigs and things like that. But for maybe unconscious, conscious reasons, I have just been putting it off. And this year, that had to change. And I knew I needed to like get up and tell stories in front of a crowd. Actually, I remember last year, 2025, I was going to sign up for Story Slams, which, if you know the Moth podcast is like recordings of people telling their stories live, 5 minutes, no notes. You just get up there and tell a story. Uh, that's the Moth podcast. They have a bunch of those recordings, and then that was put on by a guy, Matthew Dix, who created Story Slams, and I think that's where they get the recordings. And so now the Moth hosts Story Slams. Um, and Matthew Dix started that, and he wrote a book called Storyworthy, which I really love. I may have mentioned it in previous podcasts. So in 2025, I was like, I'm going to do like one a quarter, and I just never did in life. And I went through a breakup. I moved out of the town. I was doing a lot of traveling, and honestly, I just forgot about it. Slash, maybe unconsciously just was avoiding it. So in 2026, I moved to Newport, Rhode Island for 3 months. My brother is gonna have his first baby of the family, first time being an uncle. So I was gonna live in Newport for 3 months. The baby was due at the end of February. So I said, I'll live in Newport for 3 months and be uncle and support you guys however you need me. So I moved to Newport for 3 months, and I find this event called Tell Newport, which is a storytelling event. It is more like a 10-minute story. It doesn't seem as strict as The Moth, though. I don't even know The Moth, never been, but it seemed a little less strict. But yeah, so I went to, I actually saw that a little bit like whenever I saw it, it doesn't matter. But I was like, ooh, I'll sign up for the March one. It's the first Thursday of every month. I'll sign up for March. Shot the guy a message on Instagram. He never got back to me. So I was like, whatever, I'll just go, and then I'll see if I can talk to him at the end of the show and sign up. And so I go, and yeah, it's roughly 10-minute stories. There's themes as well, and it was so fun. It was so intimate. Like I said, 80 to 100 people at this venue. So intimate, so fun. The host, Jesse, is such a great host. It's hilarious. He's hilarious. And so that event ends, and I go up to Jesse, and I'm like, hey, man, my name's Matt. I would love to tell a story next month. And he's like, yes, awesome. He's like, do you have a story to tell? And I'm like, well, I didn't tell him I'm a storytelling coach, but I was like, yeah, I've like lots of stories. He's like, no, the one story on your mind right now, that's the one you're telling. And I'm like, all right, like, well, what's the theme? He's like, don't worry about the theme. He's like, just tell that story. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me the theme once you get it, because I'd love to work the theme in at least. And so he's like got me all jazzed up. He's like, you're in, you're storytelling, April 2nd. I got you. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, please let me know the theme. He's like, yeah. So he got me really locked into my bike trip story, which, when he said that, it was like, yeah, that is, if someone asked me, do you have a story to tell? It's like, well, yeah, that's my founder story. I've told it a bunch of times. That obviously can be the story that I would tell. So once he said that, I was pretty locked in like mentally to telling that story. Though I will say, I feel like sometimes with that story, it's 10 years ago this year that I rode my bike across America. And it is my founder story. It really did kick off my life into entrepreneurship and being a coach and all of that. But at the same time, it's starting to feel so long ago that I'm like, I need a new story to tell. Like, I feel like the 40-year-old guy at the local bar of the town he grew up in wearing his Letterman football jacket. And he's like, when I was in high school, I threw for 4,000 yards. I still hold the record for most yards thrown. We won the state championship. It's like, bro, move on with your life. I kind of feel like that sometimes. which is my own judgment, just being my own harshest critic. Because yeah, having a great founder story is super important. It's something we're actually working on in my mastermind in April, this month. And so anyway, I got that story locked in. And about, say maybe 10 days to about 2 weeks before April 2nd, before the event, I get a text from Jesse, the host, and he gives me this long paragraph, and he's like, and he tells me the theme. The theme is lost. And I'm like, all right, lost, pretty easy theme. You could probably work lost into like a million things. There's a million ways to interpret lost, like feeling lost or losing something, like losing an item, or, losing games or losing at life or whatever. There's so many ways to think about that. So I was like, all right, cool. I can work lost into this story that I've told many times. But this is like my manifest generator energy, where I'm like, I do not like to do the same thing over and over. Like, just telling the same story the same way all the time is just boring to me. So he gives me this theme, and I'm like, all right, like, I got to start building this out. And a few days go by, I don't really do anything with it, but I'll be like laying in bed, and I try not to do this laying in bed, because like I thought of the theme lost, and I thought of my story, and I'm like, shit, now that it's in my mind, I start getting anxious about figuring out my story. And then so I spend the next hour and a half in bed thinking about it. And so I did that one night, and then I wake up the next day, I'm like, all right, I got to like start kind of just making notes about this, because I'm just going to be anxiously thinking about it. And if I put it off, like, it's just going to be kind of weighing on me. So I woke up the next morning and I started to draw on it. And this is like, I'm telling you the story, but I'm also like offering this to you. I think this is a really important part of the process where, by the way, I'm going to start to talk about the story that I told. If you don't want a spoiler, I'll put the time code in the description, and you could fast forward to that and listen to the story first. And then if you want to come back to this spot in the podcast, and you can keep listening to the podcast. But as I talk about me developing the idea for the story, I'm going to be like giving spoilers. So if you're okay with that, keep listening. If you want to skip ahead and then come back, do whatever you want. But I'll have the time code for the story in the description. So I wake up that morning and I'm like, all right, first step with any type of writing is to just brain dump ideas. So I know the theme is lost. And I know that I have this story that I've told many times, and I don't typically talk about it through the lens of being lost, though I definitely can. Because part of me riding my bike across America was a quarter-life crisis. I was a civil engineer in New York City, and I felt like I'd made it. 25 years of my life, I got good grades, went to a good school, got a good degree, lived in the greatest city in the world. I got this great job, and now here I am. I've arrived in life, but I feel really lost. And that's essentially the theme that I start to talk through. So again, if you go listen to the story, you're going to hear me say this multiple times. But I kind of understood that would be my theme. And so every great story has a beginning, middle, and end. So when I start to like journal out the story, I'm not trying to write the story. And that's the problem a lot of people get into, where they're trying to make something right and perfect off the bat. Stephen King talks about this in his book On Writing. He says, you don't try for plot. He says, you just write. He has this story where he's like, he thinks of two characters. He's like, I have a character who walks into a diner. One of the characters is a 13-year-old girl. The other is a 40-year-old man with a scar running across his face. And they sit down at the table together. And he's like, and I begin there. And then he starts writing. Who the hell, like, why is a 13-year-old girl with this 40-year-old man? What's the deal with the scar? Blah, blah. And he starts to just like, what do the characters want to tell? Now, obviously this is fiction, but it kind of applies for any of your stories, which is to understand, okay, I have an idea for a story. There's a moment in my life that I want to talk about. Every story is disempowered to empowered. Your character goes through a transformation. And so when you're thinking about a story to tell, what is the transformation your character has gone through? And to understand that, you kind of go from like, you have a beginning idea and an ending idea. And for me, that was like lost. I feel lost, and now I feel like I found myself. Okay, so we have that disempowered time where I felt lost, and then we have the empowered time where I felt like I found myself, like I understand this whole game of life. So once you kind of understand, all right, disempowered to empowered, beginning and end, you kind of start to fill in the middle, which is, where does it begin, what's the middle, and what is the end? And so really the whole process of the storytelling is like, don't start writing your storytelling yet. I spent, I think, 2 or 3 days just journaling. And again, I've told this story so many times, but I wanted to tell it in a fresh way. So I was just like journaling ideas. Not to get it right. It wasn't in order. I'm just like throwing ideas down. I'm talking about my bike trip. I'm talking about memorable moments. I'm talking about the end of the bike trip and the way that I've told that before. How does this all link up with feeling lost and feeling like I found myself? What does it really mean to find yourself? And what does it mean to arrive? And what's the problem with arriving? I'm just asking all these questions. I'm not really telling the story even yet. And then, I'm laying in bed one night later, and then my phone actually stopped recording, so I might be repeating myself, but I can't remember if I actually got this recorded. So I'm going to say it again, or maybe it's the first time you're hearing it. But I try not to think about the story when I'm laying in bed, because then I'll end up laying in bed for an hour and a half, tossing and turning, thinking about my story, and it will keep me up way past my bedtime. But there were a few nights where it just did it, where I thought about my story and it popped in my mind, so I started thinking about it. And then I'm like laying in bed and I started thinking about this idea that at the end of my bike trip, and again, this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, you could skip. But at the end of my bike trip, and by the way, I only know all this and I can only do all this and think about all this because this story is like 10 years old, because I've talked about it a few times, because I've talked about it with my family. And one thing that my dad and I have talked about, or my dad actually told me this, he's like, Matthew, I think your brand, like your calling card is screaming, woo, 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 woo. And I was like, that's interesting. I don't know if I love it, but it is kind of cool. Because on that bike trip, I filmed every day on Snapchat. I was posting every day on Snapchat. I uploaded every video to YouTube. I'll link a few of the days below so you can find it. And during like on Snapchat, I would just be like, I'd be mooing at cows. I'd be eating ice cream. I'd be flying downhill screaming, woo, 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 woo. So at the end of the bike trip, and I don't even remember when my dad told me that. It might have been during the bike trip. It might have been at the end. It might have been weeks later. It might have been a month later, 2 months later. But at the end of the bike trip, again, spoiler, day 90, my family flew out to see me, and I'm like on the final leg of my bike trip, riding down this final street, and my family's screaming, and my dad is screaming, woo, 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 woo. So I'm laying in bed one night, and I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about how my dad screamed woo, woo, and how he told me that could be like, my brand moniker or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's a theme I could do. I could like tell a few days of my bike trip, a few amazing moments that I had during my bike trip, and I could center those days around this idea of screaming, woo, 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 woo. And so I'm laying in bed at night, and I start to come up with this theme where I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can talk about day 5, day 70, and day 89, and day 90, where I bring about this theme of woo, woo. And it will be like, it'll give something. I talked about this in the previous episode where I break down some tips from Elf. Having a recurring theme is so important because it's pattern recognition for your audience. And when they can latch onto a pattern, it makes the story stickier. And it allows themselves to immerse themselves in it. They start to get attached to it. Oh, they start noticing patterns, which gives people dopamine. Our brain loves to recognize patterns, so that gives us dopamine. So it makes them now they're feeling more dopamine as they listen to your story, which makes the story that much better. Super cool little tip. And I talk about that more in the previous episode. So I'm laying in bed at night and I'm like, oh, sick. There's this like theme I can start to pull on. I can start to tell these like little mini stories in the story of like, woo, 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 woo. And so I'm laying in bed and I get really excited about that. And then I'm like about a week away from telling the story. And I'm like, all right, now I've got like some ideas. I need to start like telling this story. I need to start putting these ideas together and try practicing the story. So one Sunday, Sunday. So this is a Sunday, so it must be like 10 days before, I guess. I'm driving out to a trail run, and it's like a 45-minute drive. So I'm just like, no music, nothing. I'm just going to like tell the story. And it probably took me like 25 minutes, 30 minutes to tell the story, which is way too long. But I was backtracking. I was repeating stuff. I was jumping back and forth, being like, ooh, I could do this here. I could do this here. And so I just spent time just playing with the story, just playing with it. And that's my whole car ride on this trail run. And then I think even during the trail run, which I told myself I wouldn't do, I'd be like, just enjoy the trail run. Even during the trail run, I was like practicing it. And then that was like the next 10 days. I'd practice it. I'd practice it like really roughly. And then I think it was about a week away when I was like, okay, now I need to actually like tell the story no backtracking, no repeating myself. Go out to the ocean. There's this like really cool spot in Newport, this chasm where like there's this huge cut in the rock where the ocean kind of like juts into and explodes up out of. And so I went to the chasm and I stood out there on this rock cliff over the Atlantic Ocean, and I'd be like, all right, pretend the audience is there, start to finish, tell the story. And so I practiced the story, and like the first time it was 20 minutes, and I was like, all right, I got to cut a few things out. So I cut a few things out and I tightened it up. And yeah, I went out there for the next week and probably told the story 5 or 6 times and really kind of got it locked in because I really enjoyed that. I like want to hit these beats of the story. I want to hit these woo woo moments. There was a few other beats that I wanted to hit, and so I just wanted to make sure I got it right. And by the way, in these events, like that's not required. I'll even talk about a guy that night who just went up and like completely freeballed the thing, and it was amazing. I'll talk about that at the end. But for me, this is important. This is important. I really I love what I do. I am a storyteller. I do want to like get this right. I don't want to get up there and like tell a nonsense story. I really want to tell a good story. I love the craft of storytelling. So, it's a creative choice to take it this seriously and to really practice it, which also made me so nervous. And I even told my brother and his wife, because my lease ended on March 31st. The story was April 2nd, so I moved in with them for a few days to stay with them, so I could be in town to tell the story and for Easter and stuff. And I was talking to my brother's wife, and she's like, "You're nervous?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm freaking out. Like, I'm nervous and excited, and like I want to do well." And she's like, "Wow, I didn't think. Like, wow, you're human. Like, you get nervous." It was actually just a really cool moment for her to have that that view or perspective of me as if I'm some guy who doesn't get nervous. That's really cool because I love my brother's wife, and for her to be like, "You get nervous?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do." And she's like, "Wow, I didn't think you would." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I don't know, it was just kind of cool for her to give me that reflection. And anyway, so so I'm practicing, and then the day of, I practice one more time in the morning, and then about 2 hours before the event, I go for a run. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna clear my head, which was really hard to do. But I was like, I've practiced enough. I need to just soften into like I'm gonna do like this is it. I got it. You can only practice so much. It's time to just relax and breathe. It's like the only way to perform your best is if you can relax, which was so fucking hard for me. And so, okay, so we get to the storytelling night, and I got some friends that showed up. They're texting me. Some friends are there. My brother's in-laws are there. My brother's there. His wife is not because she's with the baby. But she was nice enough to let him go and come and watch me. He recorded the whole thing, which is why I have the recording. And so Jesse, the host, gets on. He's hilarious. He's a great host. He tells these stories in between each storyteller. He's like a really good MC that way. And then one guy goes first. He tells like a drinking story, and then it's my turn. The drinking story is really funny, by the way. And then even when I went last month in March, like there were really funny stories. People were laughing a lot. I'm like, mine's not gonna be funny. Like I know it's not that funny. There'll be funny like moments, kind of, but it's just not a funny story. It's really kind of an intense, not intense, but like it's a drama. It's a life story of feeling lost and wanting to change. And so I know there was definitely parts of me that wish I could have been funnier, and that's not required, right? Like you can tell a story, you can make people cry, whatever. But a lot of these people were funnier, and I think sometimes it's hard for me to be funny and like drama, and it's actually something I would like really love to work on. I think I'm really good at being vulnerable and getting in my emotions and being really attuned to those emotions. And like I'm a good storyteller in general, but I think something that would make my stories even better is to be funny. And you don't have to be. Like you don't have to be funny. It's just something that I would love to be more of. I really would love to be able to work in funny. Like I think really good comedians are some of the smartest people in the world. You have to be with timing, pacing, just being funny, being like, that's so smart. It's so intelligent. Something I would love to practice, and probably be looking into this year. So anyway, so yeah, I get up, and I'm just nervous as hell. And, again, this story took me about 15 minutes to practice out when I was practicing over the ocean, and I was nice and slow and was hitting all these beats and all this stuff. It ended up being like 11 and a half minutes long because I definitely rushed. I definitely didn't pause in the moments that I really wanted to. And, you're your own worst critic. I watch it, and like there's some stumbling that I do. Uh, and I would love to just be more comfortable on stage, but this is my first time, so it's okay. It's 100% okay, and I want to get better. So I tell this story. I have this whole woo-woo thing. I finish my story, I say thank you, and my brother stops the recording, but as I'm walking off stage, somebody in the back goes, woo-woo! Woo-woo! And then like 10 other people start going, woo-woo! And so my whole theme, my whole bit actually became the thing people started screaming as I walked off stage. It was so freaking cool. Oh my God, it made me so happy. And my brother even reflected that. He's like, dude, people were like screaming woo-woo. I was like, I know, that was sick. He's like, damn, I'm so bummed I stopped recording. But what a beautiful memory to have. And then so Jesse gets up, the host, and we go to intermission. The band comes up to play. And so like a bunch of my friends come up to me and they're like, amazing job, great job. And I just noticed myself being like, yeah, like, you're supposed to say that. What are you going to come up to me and be like, shitty story, Matt? That was like not emotional, like just boring as hell. I almost fell asleep. No, of course they're gonna say good job. So I can just feel myself like not accepting the praise and I just don't believe people. It's so crazy. I do this to myself all the time. It's so hard for me to receive the praise. And then this guy comes up to me. He's like, hey man, I've been coming here for 3 years, and that is the top 3 story I've ever heard. And I'm like, wow, thank you so much. Like, that means a lot. I really do appreciate it. And I did, and I do appreciate it. And at the same time, like that feels cool. But I do this thing where I'm like, like, okay, great. And what else? Like, what else? And this is really what I want to bring it back to with this whole episode that I'm recording and sharing the story with you is like, why is it so hard for us to do our soul work, to do what we know like we should be doing? And I think it's because we put this activity on a pedestal. Like I put performing in front of live audiences on a pedestal, that this is the biggest thing, and it's scary, and it's also gonna be the thing that I know I should be doing with my life, and that's gonna change my life forever. And I think 2 things kind of happen. Is that one? Well, actually, there's like I don't know how to say this, but like I think that night is going to change my life or something, but it doesn't, and it does. It doesn't, because I didn't wake up the next day and now I'm like famous storyteller. I'm being invited on all these podcasts. My business makes $1 million. It's the same thing with like going viral. Like, your life doesn't actually change the next day after you do the big, bold, scary thing. And at the same time, it does change. Because now what you realize is that it actually isn't about the event itself. While it is, and that was fun, and it's exhilarating to be up there to tell a story, it's amazing to get all that praise, but it's not about that one day. It's actually about all of it, everything that came before it. It's about going to an event like that. It's about asking and doing the scary thing and telling Jesse, hey, I'd like to tell a story next month. It's about receiving that text from him and getting his text that the theme is lost. And then it's going, ooh, now I have to like figure out my story. It's that day in my car ride on my trail run where I spent my day in the car 25 minutes trying to tell this story. And then it's journaling on it. And then it's laying in bed at night. It's the moment where I get to go, ooh, that's like a theme. Those are the moments. Like, this is enjoying the journey. And funny enough, that's exactly what my whole story is about. There's no arrival. Life is just about enjoying the process. And what ends up happening when we have this like soul work that we keep putting off, this is what leads us to like doom scroll and get addicted to porn and drink and smoke weed and like do all these and eat sugar and do all these unhealthy habits. We procrastinate because we just keep saying, no, I'm not going to go pursue that big thing that I know I should be doing. It's not that you're not doing bold stuff either. Like, I make content, I'm building my business, I'm launching products, I'm doing bold things. But the real, true Dharma work, the real true work, like getting up on stages and telling my story, that work I have been avoiding for so long. And I think it's been the biggest, pain in my life. It's probably what's created, the most pain is just like not actually pursuing what I know I'm meant to be doing. And because of that, because we put this thing on this pedestal and like we avoid it, because like, now I did this thing. but it didn't really change my life. But again, it did change my life because now I realize, oh, this is the thing I should be doing instead of doom scrolling and distracting myself and watching porn and all this stuff. Actually, I get to spend my days in the, like, I don't need another fucking podcast to listen to. No, I get to spend my car rides figuring out how to tell this story. I get to spend my journal sessions not journaling on why I'm so fucked up and where all my trauma comes from. I just get to spend my journaling in the morning, journaling about the story, how I get to like strip this story and formulate the story. And then I lay in bed at night and, oh, who cares if I had trouble sleeping that one night because I spent an hour thinking about that story I get to tell and uncovering that theme, and then I get to go, ooh, ooh, ooh. That's life. Life is about experiencing joy, beauty, awe, wonder. And because I signed up to tell this story, the moment I got that text from Jesse when he told me that theme, because I wasn't really thinking about the story until I got the theme. Once I got the theme, the next, whatever it was, 10 to 14 days were so fun. I wasn't procrastinating. I wasn't, avoiding things in life. I was like lit up by this pursuit. And that's what it is, right? That's what life is supposed to be. And I think that's the beauty of finally saying yes to that soul-aligned work, to that dharma, is that you say, no, there is no a year later, 2 years later, oh, one day I'll write my book, but then you put the book off because the book feels like this big thing. And then when you finish the book, will the book better like change my life? That's not what it's about. It's about every day you get to wake up and go to the park with a cup of coffee and bring your computer and you can start writing your book. And it's writing each word at a time. It's doing your research on the book. It's looking at old photos. It's remembering those stories. Whatever book you're writing, right? It's coming up with the characters. It's coming up with theme. It's revising chapters. It's making it a little bit better. That is hard work. But hard work isn't bad. Hard work is fun. It's energizing. It's beautiful. That is dharma. If you look up what dharma actually is, dharma isn't like easy. Dharma is challenging. It is being in this, it is that dance, right? You think about like, I like the idea of like dancing with dharma. You think of dancing with dharma, or you think about dancing in general. Dancing isn't trying to get somewhere. You're not trying to finish the song so you can bow and be done with the dance. No, the joy is the dance. The joy is spinning your partner and catching her and, coming up with, I don't know, I'm not a big dancer, but I've done a little bit of it. Like dancing, it's like jazz. It's like I love the idea of like the dancing where, it's not what do you call it? It's not a choreographed dance. I like the idea of dancing free flowing where you could, it's like when I went two-stepping in Texas, it's like, we're just free flowing. We're just like, I'm just spinning a girl. I'm just trying to like vibe to the song. And it was my first time two-stepping. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I love the idea of it. Like that's actually life. Dancing with dharma is not like, oh, one day I'll arrive, I'll figure it out. No, it is the dance. You get to dance. And that's what I think when you think about your dharma and all the stuff you put off, it's like, just get back to enjoying the dance. And that's also too what I want to say about storytelling and like content creation and all this stuff in general, is that we're so addicted to like getting it done, like posting a piece of content, get to the next piece of content, get to the next piece of content. But we're not spending enough time dancing. We're not spending enough time in our journals trying to like just brain dump and uncover something new. We're just like, what do I know? Whatever I know, I'm going to like share that. It's like, no. That's fucking boring. You don't want to just talk about all the things you know. You want to like sit down and uncover something new. That's beautiful. That's content people love. But that takes more time. That takes a little bit of patience to sit at your journal and just let yourself brain dump, to go on walks without a podcast and just let your mind fucking wander. Your brain will automatically start pulling in stories, coming up with new ideas. It's like a shower thought. We need more space to have shower thoughts. And then when you have that shower thought, then you get to formulate it and put it together into something fresh and understandable and fluent that people will actually get to latch onto and enjoy. But most of us are just like, next thing, like podcast, next thing, another piece of content, another newsletter, I just gotta get it out. It's like, where are you rushing off to? There's nowhere to rush off to. This is life right now. It's right now. It's the dance. You are dancing. It's not the end of the dance where you bow. That's not the best part. The part is in the moment when you spin your partner and twirl back in and dip and you're flowing. That's what life gets to be. And it's really met in this way because that's kind of what my story was about. So I'm going to have you listen to it now. But yeah, that's something I want to share where it's like, if you feel like you've been, like, deep down in your gut, you truly know, like, if you were being 100% honest with yourself, where you're like, no, like, if I'm being really, really honest with myself, like, Matt, you need to get up on stage and talk. You need to get up on stage and do an open mic night. You need to get up on stage and do stand-up comedy. Like, all of those things scare the crap out of me. So I start with telling a story because that feels the least scary. But it's more of that. And I've been putting it off for so long. And it's too bad because that it's just this past 10 days have been 2 weeks have been incredible. And that's what I want more of. I want to dance with Dharma. I don't want to put the dance off anymore. It's not the best way to live. It's not a fun way to live at all. So, if you could be honest with yourself, what is that thing? What is that thing truly deep down? And it's scary because if you say it, then you kind of like have to do it, and that's so scary. But yeah, that's what I want to help people do is like see the truth and go after the truth, and learn how to make it a little less serious. Learn how to make the dance a little more fun, a little more flowy. Not doing it in the way you think you should do it. Not do it in the way you have to do it, the way you see so-and-so doing it. But to just keep being honest with yourself. How do I get to do my dance my way? Which is like the least sellable thing, by the way, because I'm not prescribing you a formula. Though there's kind of a formula, which is like to uncover your story, tell your story, so you can uncover your true desires. I go through this in a training. I'll link the training below. Also, I'd love for you to come to Breadcrumbs. It's my once a month virtual event where you get to do this, tell stories, and there's a theme. And if you want to just come and listen, you can come and listen. But I would love for you to be bold and brave and to tell a story because, man, there's nothing like getting up there and doing the scary thing, messing up a little bit, but everybody just loving you anyway, loving you for being vulnerable. Man, I've been to 2 of these events now, and I've never seen anyone get up there and bomb. Oh, and I want to mention the one dude who came up. This one dude comes up. He's the last storyteller. I think he's from Guatemala, I believe, if I have that right. And he gets up there. He's like foreign. He's got an accent. He's gay. So he's got that like flamboyant vibe. He comes on stage. He does like a spin, and everyone starts applauding. And he's like, "What's up?" He's like, "All right, the theme is lost." He's like, "I'm lost right now because I have no idea what I'm going to talk about." He's like, "I was out for brunch this morning with my friends, and I was like, oh no, I still don't know what I'm going to talk about." He's like, "So here I am, no idea what I'm going to talk about." And he starts rambling, and you can kind of get that like nervous feeling for him, like, oh God, like where's this gonna go? But he's just up there so confident. He's like, all right. He's like, how about this? He's like, you guys want to hear like classic immigrant story, or do you want to hear a story of me being mean? And everyone's like, you being mean, tell that story, because he's so joyful. You're like, no way, this guy's ever mean. And he just started telling a story. It was kind of an immigrant story. It wasn't really him being mean at all. And then he just somehow weaved it into at the end. He's like, I'm lost right now, but you know what? We're all fucking lost. Everyone's lost, and we're so in our heads. We think everybody has it figured out, but no one has it figured out. Everyone's lost, and it's okay. We can be okay. He had everyone laughing, and oh my God, he was so good. And he came up like I was there. I was so prepared. I practiced so much. He was there. He had no idea what he was going to say, and he just was fully himself. And he allowed himself to be himself, and it was so beautiful. And I would argue that he was better than me. It was a totally different flavor. It's art. There's really no better. But I loved what he did. It was so beautiful. It was so funny. It was incredible. And I admire that in him. Like I said, I'd love to be funnier. I would love to be a little more carefree. I admire that in him, and so I really loved what he did. And so anyway, come to Breadcrumbs. Tell a story. If it's not on theme, I don't even care. Just come. I need storytellers. So come tell your story. Do a bold, brave thing. And if you just want to come and listen, you're free to come and listen too. I won't call you out. I won't make anyone tell a story. You'll know if you're telling a story beforehand or not. And if you're not telling a story, then you're just there to listen, and that's great. So all this stuff will be linked in the description. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put on my story from Tell Newport. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the next episode. Peace. Much love.
All right, so it's 2015. I'm 25 years old, living in New York City as a civil engineer. I just finished a project about 3 months ago, the New York City Police Academy, $800 million state-of-the-art job. Now my new project is the new Freedom Tower, or the Freedom Tower at the New World Trade Center. $4 billion project. Like, all right, things are going well with my career. These are good projects. And so, real excited about being a civil engineer, or so I think. I'm 4 months building the Freedom Tower and go to work one day. It's just an average day. Take the elevator up to the 14th floor, walk in the office, go to my cubicle, 6-foot-high cubicle walls, fluorescent lights beaming down on me. I'm in the middle of the building, so there's no chance of sunlight getting to me. Plop down on my swivel chair, and there is my stack of paperwork for the day. Change orders. It's not important, but if you know, change orders. And this work should probably take me about 3 days to do, and I finished it in 4 hours. And so it's like 11:30. I'm like, all right, pick up the stack of papers, walk to my boss's office. He's got the corner office, and put the papers down. He's on the phone, too busy to really even say hi to me. I'm like, what's up, dude? I look out the window, and I see just a sliver of the Freedom Tower. And I see that, and I'm like, who gives a shit? I'm like, who cares? This is like $4 billion project, Freedom Tower, New World Trade Center, and I don't care. It's just an office building. And so I have this moment. I take my 10 paces back to my cubicle, and on those 10 paces, I'm like, all right, like I did it. 25 years of my life. I was a good boy, got good grades, went to a good school, got a great degree. I live in the greatest city in the world. I got a great project, a great job, and I don't care. And I had this sinking feeling where like, wow, I arrived. I'm here, 25 years of my life. And the funny thing about arriving is that I've never felt more lost in my entire life. And I sat back down in the cubicle chair, or in my swivel chair, in my cubicle, and I could just feel those fluorescent lights beaming on me, getting brighter. I could feel those 6-foot cubicle walls caving in on me. And I started to project my future out. I'm dating this girl, we're gonna get married, I'll move to the suburbs, have kids, climb the corporate ladder, retire at 65, one day I'll have grandkids. And those grandkids will be like, Grandpa, tell us about life. They're probably gonna do that, but tell me some stories, Grandpa. And I would say, I don't know, guys. I actually spent 40 hours a week for 40 years of my life doing something I didn't really care about. And that thought crushed me. And I'm sitting in that cubicle, and I thought, well, I have to do something before life gets ahead of me. I just got to do something remarkable with my life. So 8 months later, I'm standing barefoot in the Atlantic Ocean, holding my Trek 520 bicycle, loaded up with bags, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, sleeping mat, whatever, all this stuff. My whole family's there to see me start my bike ride across America. And that was June 20th, 2016. And so I'm like 5 days into this bike trip across America. And the first 2 weeks of this bike trip are absolutely miserable. I don't have my legs. I've been training in New York City, so there's no elevation, there's no hills to climb. My bike now weighs 90 pounds. I wasn't used to that. It's late June. It's 90 degrees, 90% humidity. I am dying. It's miserable. And I remember getting to the bottom of a hill and looking up. I just came down a hill and I'm like, all right, another fucking hill. Here we go. You can just see it come to a head. And I'm like, man, it would be the worst thing. Like, I'm not gonna quit. It wouldn't be the worst thing if like a truck hit me and I woke up in the hospital, like totally okay. But like, fuck, this is tough. And there is one good thing about uphills, and that is there's always a downhill. And around day 5, in this excruciating pain, shirt drenched, I'm on my way to Washington, D.C. to stay with a friend. And I was, you spend a lot of time alone on this bike trip. I average 65 miles a day, just a lot of time alone. And I was thinking, I was like, man, I really love these downhills. I'm on my way to D.C. What would a downhill stand for? I feel like they make me so happy. I'm going to call it downhills downhill chubbies. That's how happy they made me. And it became this theme where I actually would record myself on Snapchat, and so my family could keep up with me. And so I'd get to the top of a hill, and I would fly down those hills, record myself, flying down this hill going, woo, 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 woo! Just loving the hell out of those downhill chubbies. I'm going to say that a lot. And then we get to August, and along this trip I meet up with people. So August, I spend a night in this, spend a lot of time in like churches. You can just sleep there for free. So it's nice to spend some time inside out of the heat. And so you meet people at these places, and you'd link up and you'd ride together. And so I'm in western Wyoming and meet some really just amazing people that I get to ride with. And now we're in the Rockies. So what were once on the East Coast, just these kind of up and down hills really fast, now we're talking hills that are just miles and miles, just up and up forever. The good news is I have my legs now, so it's kind of like you're just kind of doing it. And you reach in your front bag and you grab a Pop-Tart and you're just like going up the hill. It's probably slower than Jesse up those hills. He would have been passing me. But you just do it. And it's just what you did at this point. We're 2 months in. And climb up the hill. We're telling stories. We're in this pack. We're telling stories. We're laughing. We get to the top of this hill. At the top of the hill is a glacial lake. And we're all just like, we're riding our bikes across America. This is sick. We throw our bikes down. We get almost butt-ass naked. We jump into the glacial lake. It's freezing, but we're just screaming, having a great time. We get out of the lake. Some other travelers stop for, the vantage point. They're like, what are you guys doing? We're like, riding across the country. They're like, oh, sick. Like, here's some apples. And we're like, sick, apples. And we're spreading peanut butter, and we're just like chilling, drying off. I'm like, this is like might be the best day of my life. And so get back on the bike. And now one of the best things you can see as a cyclist is the sign for truckers that says, like, truckers beware, next 8 miles, 8% downhill grade. And you're like, 8? That's the biggest downhill chubbies I have ever seen in my life. Like, this is really the best day. And it's just a perfect summer day. You unzip your bike jersey, tits out for the boys, and I'm riding down that hill, and I'm going, woo, 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 woo! Post Snapchat. Then we get to early September. I'm in northern Idaho. It is pouring rain. It is freezing cold. It was the only day where I did not want any downhills. No downhills. Not this day. I actually really was the only day that I loved an uphill. Because on the uphill, you warmed up. And it's, it's like 40 degrees, pouring rain, just freezing, shivering. And it's a day of rolling hills in northern Idaho. And it's rough, and I thought there would be no downhill chubbies. But then I get to one hill, and I remember getting up to the top of it, starting to warm up, and I just had this perspective. I was like, even this might be the worst day of the trip. It's still better than being a civil engineer back in New York City. And that kind of made me smile, and I got to the top of the hill, and I was ready to curl back up and make sure I was warm going down those downhills. And with this new perspective, I was like, no, you know what? This is still better than being an engineer in New York City. So I puffed up my chest, I raised down my arms, and I made sure I had a downhill chubby that day, screaming, woo, 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 and then posting that to Snapchat. And the final day, day 90, it was a little rainy, but it wasn't as bad, and it didn't really matter because my adrenaline was pumping. It's the last day of the trip, and my family flies out to see me. My mom, dad, my brother in the front row here, and my girlfriend. And I thought they're waiting for me at the beach so that I could finish my trip in the Pacific Ocean. So they're waiting for me at the beach, and I thought I'd have this epic finish. I would just fly past them. The sand would take my bike. I'd jump off. I'd splash in the Pacific Ocean. It'd be this heroic ending. But I take that final turn of the trip, 5,019 miles. And I can't see my family because it is rainy, it's a bit foggy, but I can hear them. Specifically, I can hear my dad. And you know what he's screaming? Woo, 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 woo! And I'm like, oh, fuck, they're there. My adrenaline starts pumping. I start riding so hard. And they're getting closer. I can see him now. My dad is screaming. Adam's jumping up and down. My girlfriend is crying and screaming my name. My mom's crying too hard to even speak. And all of a sudden, I'm 50 feet away, and I black out. The next thing I know, I'm not on the beach running into the ocean, but I'm crashing into my dad's arms. My brother comes crashing into me, my girlfriend, my mom. They're enveloping me and just screaming, crying, laughing, and loving. It was the best moment of my life. And we go to the beach. I get to dip my front wheel in the Pacific Ocean to complete the trip. We drink champagne. Adam even got me a Snapchat filter with my logo on it. So sick. And then so I got to pack up my bag, so I'm in the car, take my bike to the bike shop and mail it to the East Coast. Trip's over. That's it. We pile in the rental car, and we're going to make our way down the coast to my aunt who lives in San Francisco. And so we got a long drive ahead of us. And once everything calms down, it's quiet in the car, it feels like a movie. I literally have my head pressed up against the window. The raindrops are falling. I'm like, wow, I rode my bike across America. How cool. And then I was like, oh, fuck. Now I'm going to go home and be a civil engineer in New York City. Funny thing about arriving. I finished this bike trip. I've arrived, but now once again, I feel lost. And I think that's the myth we have about feeling lost. That we think the antidote is to arrive somewhere. One day I'll arrive, I'll be happy, everything will be complete. But I just haven't found that to be the case. What I have found to be the case is that you unapologetically pursue downhill chubbies for the rest of your life, so that every single day can be filled with moments of you screaming, woo, 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 woo! Post on Snapchat. Thank you.